Thomas Whitaker had never faced a problem his money couldn't solve, until now. In his stately Lincoln Park mansion, lined with shelves of expensive books, Thomas watched his 9-year-old son, Alex, struggle to even recognize simple words. The latest private tutor, renowned and costly, had just left with a defeated shrug. Now, Alex sat hunched over at the vast mahogany desk, tears staining his cheeks as he squeezed a crumpled worksheet in his fist. Thomas's chest ached as he knelt beside his son. This boy, his only child, was bright and imaginative, but the jumble of letters on a page tormented him daily. "Why can't I fix this?" Thomas thought, his mind racing through all the specialists, therapists, and exclusive programs he'd poured money into. Not a single one had unlocked reading for Alex. For the first time in his life, the self-made millionaire felt completely powerless. As dusk settled, Thomas gently took the crumpled paper from Alex's hands. "It's okay, buddy," he whispered, trying to sound reassuring even as his own voice trembled. Alex avoided his father's gaze, cheeks burning with shame. Thomas realized with dread that his son was beginning to believe a terrible lie, that he was broken or not smart enough. A heavy silence filled the elegant room, broken only by the boy's muffled sniffles. Thomas turned toward the floor-to-ceiling window, his eyes drifting over the twilight skyline of Chicago. He had exhausted every option money could buy. Just when despair threatened to crush him, a flicker of movement caught Alex's eye outside. Beyond their manicured lawn, the soft glow of a modest brick building, the neighborhood's small public library, twinkled in the dusk. Alex wiped his face and gazed at the library's windows, drawn by something inside. Thomas noticed the quiet spark of curiosity in his son's eyes and felt hope stir in his chest. Perhaps the answer to Alex's struggle lay in a place he had never considered. If you believe the greatest help often comes from the most humble places, join us. Early the next morning, Thomas's driver pulled up to a small red brick public library across town. The luxury sedan looked out of place in the working-class neighborhood, drawing a few curious glances. Alex stepped out, clutching his favorite superhero backpack, his heart pounding with nerves. He couldn't remember ever visiting a public library before. As the car rolled away, he stood on the sidewalk, staring at the faded sign that read, "Chicago Public Library, Oak Street Branch." For a moment, he wondered if he belonged here at all. Inside, the library was quiet and welcoming, filled with the comforting smell of old books. Sunlight streamed between tall shelves. A few patrons milled about, but the vast reading room felt calm, a stark contrast to the sterile tutoring centers Alex had been dragged to. He wandered timidly among the aisles, running a finger along the spines of picture books without opening them. A part of him was afraid of finding more words he couldn't read, afraid of failing yet again. "Hi there, can I help you find something?" A gentle voice interrupted the silence. Alex turned to see a smiling librarian with kind, wise eyes behind her glasses. She was an African-American woman, a bit on the older side, with silver threads in her hair and a friendly face that instantly put him at ease. Her name tag read, "Lorraine." Alex swallowed, unsure what to say. I don't know," he mumbled honestly. Lorraine noticed the way Alex avoided looking directly at the books and how his shoulders tensed at the mention of reading. She had seen that same defeated posture before in other children. With a soft smile, she said, "It's okay. We can just look around together. What do you like? Maybe superheroes like on your backpack?" Alex's eyes lit up just a little. "I love Captain Hawk," he admitted, glancing at the bright comic book hero on his backpack. Lorraine's smile broadened. Captain Hawk, huh? He's one of my favorites, too. Let's see if we can find something cool about him. She guided Alex to a colorful display of children's books and comics. Her manner was so relaxed and patient that Alex felt his fear slowly melting into curiosity. Lorraine handed him a beginner's comic book about a kid superhero. The cover was vibrant and inviting. How about this one? She offered. Alex bit his lip, worried. I can't read it by myself, he whispered, expecting disappointment or pity. But Lorraine only nodded with understanding. We can read it together. No rush, okay? She said softly. She motioned for Alex to join her at a small table by a window. The morning passed gently. Page by page, Lorraine read aloud with Alex, letting him sound out a word here and there, praising his efforts warmly. For the first time, Alex wasn't afraid of the letters on the page. With Lorraine's quiet encouragement, her voice cheering for every small victory, he managed to read a few sentences on his own. Each time he stumbled, she patiently helped him figure it out, often by relating the words to his beloved superheroes or drawing little sketches in the margins to visualize tricky words. Alex found himself laughing and smiling, utterly absorbed in the story. When noon arrived, Thomas unexpectedly showed up at the library, having finished a meeting nearby. He walked in hesitantly, not sure what he would find. The sight that greeted him took his breath away. There was Alex, sitting next to Lorraine in a cozy reading nook, actually reading aloud in a halting but proud voice. Thomas felt a lump form in his throat. He watched from a distance as this soft-spoken librarian gently guided his son through each line, celebrating every time Alex got a word right. In that quiet moment, Thomas's heart swelled with gratitude and disbelief. On the car ride home, Alex was a flurry of excitement, a stark change from the silent, withdrawn boy Thomas usually picked up from tutors. Clutching the borrowed comic book, Alex chattered about how Miss Lorraine showed him pictures and tricks to help him read. Thomas listened, equal parts astonished and overjoyed. A humble librarian in a neighborhood library had reached his son in a few hours, succeeding where highly paid experts had failed. That night, Thomas peeked into Alex's bedroom and saw his son curled up in bed, intently looking at the comic under a flashlight. Alex was trying to read on his own, by choice. Thomas's eyes stung with unexpected tears. He realized that, for the first time, Alex felt hopeful instead of defeated. But along with hope, Thomas felt an uncomfortable twinge of pride and doubt. How could a stranger, a librarian, achieve this so easily? And what did that say about all of his expensive efforts? If you were Thomas, would you trust a humble librarian to help your child when so many experts failed? The following afternoon, Thomas accompanied Alex to the Oak Street Library, determined to speak with Lorraine. Alex practically bounced on his toes with excitement to return, while Thomas struggled with a mix of gratitude and bruised pride. As soon as they entered, Alex spotted Lorraine and ran to her side. The librarian greeted him warmly. "Ready for another adventure, Alex?" He nodded eagerly, already pulling out the comic they'd started. Thomas approached more slowly. "Thank you for helping my son yesterday," he said to Lorraine, extending a hand. "I'm Thomas Whitaker." Lorraine shook his hand and smiled. "I'm happy to help. Alex is a great kid." As Alex settled in his cozy corner with his book, Thomas hovered nearby, unable to relax. Finally, he cleared his throat. I have to ask, how were you able to do what all those specialists couldn't? His voice was polite, but edged with lingering disbelief. Do you have a particular background in teaching reading difficulties? Lorraine gently closed the comic book and looked up. I've worked with many children who learn differently, she answered modestly. I studied language and education for a long time. But mostly, I just make sure Alex feels safe and interested. Here, he isn't being tested or judged. He's just enjoying a story. Thomas shifted, her answer hitting close to home. He realized Alex had always felt pressured by the expensive programs and tutoring sessions. So, all my big plans and high-end tutors, he murmured, thinking aloud, maybe they made him feel like something was wrong with him. There was regret in his voice. Lorraine's face was kind. He just needed to see that he's not broken. The right approach can make all the difference. Alex looked between them, sensing the tension easing. Thomas exhaled slowly and crouched beside his son. I only want the best for you, Alex, he said softly. Then he looked up at Lorraine. Would you be willing to continue working with him? I can compensate you, hire you as a private tutor, whatever you want. Thomas's tone was earnest. He was a father grasping for a solution. Lorraine shook her head gently. There's no need for that. I'm happy to meet with Alex here at the library. It's where he's comfortable. Thomas was taken aback by her refusal of payment. He wasn't used to someone turning down money or implying that his luxurious home wasn't the ideal setting. A spark of defensiveness flared in him. I just want to make sure he has everything he needs. Resources, materials. He has what he needs right here, Lorraine interjected kindly. Books, patience, and someone who believes in him. Thomas fell quiet. He watched Alex trace a word in the comic with his finger, mumbling its sound, and saw Lorraine gently encourage him. In that moment, Thomas felt a pang of humility. All his wealth, and it turned out what his son needed most was something money couldn't buy. Feeling overwhelmed, Thomas managed to nod. We'll come back tomorrow, he said, mustering a polite smile as he placed a hand on Alex's shoulder. Alex's face fell at having to leave so soon. Already? He whispered, disappointment evident. Lorraine gave Alex a reassuring pat on the back. Don't worry, we'll finish the adventure next time. You did great today. Alex mustered a small smile and hugged the comic book to his chest as Thomas gently guided him out. That evening, after Alex had gone to bed, Thomas sat alone in his home office. He took out the comic book, noticing a sticky note on the page they'd left off. Great progress today, Alex? Miss Lorraine? Thomas felt a lump in his throat. This librarian's simple kindness had accomplished more than all the experts combined. His curiosity piqued. Thomas opened his laptop. It didn't take long to find her. In disbelief, he read an online university profile. Dr. Lorraine Parker, a former professor of education. She had spent nearly 20 years researching how to teach children with dyslexia and had pioneered innovative techniques now used in many schools. There were photos of her giving lectures and holding awards. Thomas's jaw dropped. How had someone like this ended up quietly working in a small public library? A local news article provided the somber answer. Budget cuts and systemic bias had pushed Dr. Parker out of the university despite her brilliance. Thomas stared at the screen, remorse washing over him. He recalled how skeptical he had been, how close he came to pulling Alex away from her. He realized that Lorraine had given his son a gift that no amount of money could buy: hope and the joy of reading. Tears of shame and gratitude blurred his vision. Thomas knew he had met a true teacher, one that the world had sadly overlooked. And he resolved that come morning, he would make things right. If you believe unsung heroes like Lorraine deserve to be recognized, you're not alone. The next morning, Thomas arrived at the library just as it opened. He found Lorraine already there, carefully arranging a display of new books. At the sight of him, she straightened in surprise. Before she could say anything, Thomas spoke, his voice earnest and filled with remorse. "I owe you an apology, Ms. Parker," he began, using her last name for the first time as a sign of respect. "I was wrong about everything. I let my pride blind me, and I nearly took away the best thing that's happened to Alex." Lorraine's eyes softened. She hadn't expected to see Thomas so early, nor to hear the tremble in his voice. "Mr. Whitaker," she started, but Thomas shook his head and stepped closer, sincerity written on his face. "No, please, let me say this," he insisted gently. "I looked you up. I know about your career, your research. You're extraordinary. And you chose to help my son when you didn't have to, without asking for anything in return." Thomas's throat tightened, but he continued, "Thank you, not just for helping Alex read, but for seeing him, the boy he is, not a problem to be fixed. I'm sorry I doubted you." For a moment, Lorraine was speechless. A slow smile spread across her face. "All I've ever wanted was to help kids like Alex," she replied softly. "That's reward enough for me." She reached out and gently touched Thomas's arm. "And for what it's worth, he's a wonderful child. You're doing the right thing by supporting him." Thomas nodded, relief and gratitude flooding through him. That afternoon, when Alex came to the library, he found not only Lorraine waiting for him with a stack of new books, but his father as well. Thomas joined them in their cozy reading corner. At first, Alex was surprised. He'd never seen his father in a public library, let alone sitting on a tiny stool beside him. But as Thomas smiled and encouraged his son alongside Lorraine, Alex beamed with happiness. Day after day, Alex returned to the library, and under Lorraine's gentle guidance, his reading skills blossomed. Each small triumph, each page finished, each new word learned, was met with cheers from his two biggest supporters. Thomas watched in awe as Alex's confidence grew. The boy who once came home defeated now raced to the library with enthusiasm. One afternoon, a few weeks later, Alex proudly read an entire chapter book aloud to an audience of two, his father and Miss Lorraine. The final words were met with pure silence as Thomas wiped a tear from his eye. Then came the applause, soft but heartfelt. Alex grinned wider than ever, his eyes shining. He ran into his father's arms, and Thomas lifted him up in a joyous hug. "You did it, champ," Thomas whispered, voice thick with emotion. He met Lorraine's gaze over Alex's shoulder. "We did it," he corrected himself, giving her a grateful smile. Lorraine dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, her heart full. Thomas knew he had to truly repay Lorraine for what she had done. Remembering the injustice she had suffered in academia, he became determined to set things right, however he could. Using his influence as a prominent donor, he quietly reached out to the university where Lorraine had once taught. It wasn't long before the university formally apologized for its past mistakes and invited Dr. Lorraine Parker to return as an honored consultant on a new literacy initiative. They even asked her to train other teachers using the methods she pioneered. When Lorraine received the letter, She pressed a hand to her mouth in shock. Tears of joy gathered in her eyes as she realized she was getting a second chance to share her gift with the world. In the months that followed, Lorraine split her time between the library she loved and the university that once overlooked her, now eager to learn from her. Thomas and Alex often visited the library not out of need anymore, but out of friendship. On quiet afternoons, one could find the millionaire father, his once struggling son, and the once invisible librarian huddled together over a table, sharing stories and laughter. Thomas learned a lesson he would carry for life. True wisdom and talent aren't measured by titles or wealth. They're measured by the lives we touch. He realized that the most valuable teachers are indeed the ones society often overlooks. People like Lorraine, who changed the world one quiet act of kindness at a time. Morale. The greatest gifts can come from the humblest places, and the heroes we need are often hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to recognize their true worth.